News of Robert Bardwell finally came at the sultry end of August, and from a most unexpected source. One afternoon, Perry Gibson came riding bareback on a mule up to the house, while Truth listlessly hung laundry on the clothesline in the yard. Perry had left school to work on his father's farm, and she'd seen him only a few times since. After his brother Lockwood's death, he'd been more quiet in his behavior. He was thin and ragged, and his mule's ribs showed. Perry reined in next to Truth and said, "I've brought you news. My oldest brother Ward got sent home by the army the other day. He was in that big scrap-up in Pennsylvania. He's wounded bad in the shoulder, so he can't fight no more." Truth waited, a clothespin still in her mouth. Would Perry taunt her? It was clear he had something more to say. He went on. "It's about your cousin Robert." The pen fell to the ground as Truth stared, and then said hurriedly, "Wait till I go get my aunt and uncle." "No, I don't want to talk to them, but I'll tell you. My brother said Robert and Todd never turned into soldiers the way our officers wanted. They got put out front in that first battle at Manassas. Robert came through it, and some soldiers marched him off with them after it was over. But Ward said they never did find hide nor hair of Todd." "We fear he's dead," lied Truth. "Soldiers came here hunting for him. They said he disappeared on a battlefield at Manassas, and he could have been hit by a cannonball. They said they didn't know anything about Robert." Perry lifted his hand and scratched his head. "Ward don't know about Todd neither, but he reckons that Robert was marched away real fast before he got a chance to run away to the Yankees." He suddenly nodded. Well, that might not have been such a good notion after all, if he ever had it in mind. Ward saw Robert at Gettysburg. He was out in front the way he'd been at the other fight. My brother saw what happened to him there." Truth sucked in her breath and waited. Perry continued. "Just before Ward got hit in the shoulder, he saw a big Yankee soldier grab hold of Robert, whirl him around, and march him away at the end of a bayonet." "What?" "That's what he says. The last he saw of Robert was when that Yankee was prodding him at the back with a bayonet. A bayonet's a knife at the end of the rifle. Know what that means?" "No. What?" Even though she asked, Truth wasn't sure she wanted to know. "We think it means your cousin Robert is a prisoner of the Yankees. They took him prisoner just as if he'd been a real soldier for the South. Ain't that something, though?" "A prisoner of the North?" Truth's head spun. So Perry wouldn't see her pain. She bent down for the clothespin, picked it up, and looked at it, turning it in her fingers. Robert had whittled it for his mother. He was a fine whittler, better than Todd. She asked, "Where would the Yankees take him, Perry?" "I don't know. Some jail somewhere up north. They got for them southern prisoners, just like we do for Yankees. There's one in there's one in Charlestown called Castle Pinckney." Truth said, "I thank thee, Perry." She looked in his face. No, there was no glitter of satisfaction in his blue eyes. She asked, "Why did thee bring me this news?" Perry sighed. "I don't know, Truth. I reckon with Lockwood dead and Ward wounded so bad that there ain't so much pleasure in war no more. All I want is for us to win it and get it over with. I wish I was back at school, not just doing farm work and fetching and carrying for my sick brother and my pa who feels poorly too." My brother said in his way Robert was brave. He'd never take up a rifle even though they done real bad things to him in camp to break his spirit. It's strange, but he never got one scratch on him any time he was in battle. We hadn't expected Quakers to be brave. Truth nodded. She said, "Friends can be very strong and brave. We have to be." "I reckon so. You sure got pretty hair." Astonishingly, Perry lifted his straw hat to her like a gentleman, put it back on, and reined the mule away to go home. Truth waited until he was out of sight, and then ran to the house, slamming the back door behind her. She found her aunt and Lucy scalding the milk churn in the kitchen, getting ready to churn butter. Half laughing, half crying, Truth ran first to her aunt and hugged her, and then to Todd's pretty wife. "What is it, child? What's happened?" asked Aunt Elizabeth. "It's Robert. He's alive! He's alive! He was in battles, but he never got hurt one bit. Perry Gibson brought me the news just now. Robert's alive. His brother Ward saw Robert at Gettysburg." Lucy was the first to speak after hearing the amazing news. Where is he now? She asked as she set the kettle back on the stove. Perry says Ward thinks Robert's in one of those Yankee prisons. Prison! Cried Elizabeth Bardwell, whose expression had gone from joy to horror. Prison? Go fetch thy uncle from the barn, Truth, she sighed. This may not be so good a piece of news as we think. Prisons are evil places. We friends have had much experience with prisons, both as prisoners and as workers with prisoners. Pray to heaven the one where Robert is not a bad place. Did Perry give thee any news as to where it is? He didn't know. Her aunt shook her head. Bring thy uncle here, Truth, and thee, Lucy. Run and tell Todd. His prison is here with us is a gentle one to bear because we love him. Robert's may not be. Truth flew to the barn where her uncle was bent over, treating a spring-born heifer with a split hoof. Breathlessly, Truth told him, Uncle, Perry Gibson's fetched us news of Robert. He's alive. Perry's brother saw him at the Battle of Gettysburg. He wouldn't fight. The Gibsons think he's in a Yankee prison. Matthew Bardwell straightened up at once. Where is it, child? Did he tell thee? He said he didn't know. Her uncle's face darkened. There could be several places for prisoners of war in the North. Yes, if the Yankees found him among rebel soldiers in a battle, they'd take him prisoner. If he said he was a friend and would not fight for the South, they'd try to force him to fight for them. When he wouldn't fight at all, they'd keep him a prisoner. It isn't fair, wailed Truth. Many things in life are not. Aunt Elizabeth wants to see thee right now. Yes, of course, I'll come. What shall we do? Asked the girl. Her uncle frowned, knitting his dark brows. After a pause, he said, We friends are known to work in jails and prisons wherever they are. Friends in the North could find Robert. How could they do that? We can't write letters to the North. No, but messages can travel on the Underground Railroad as well as slaves, and more easily. Our first step will be to take a message to friend Buchan. Truth clasped her hands with hope. Why hadn't she thought of that? She asked. Would thee take me with thee? Yes, child, that is a good idea. If we're stopped, I'll say that I'm taking thee to the doctor in Goldsboro. When shall we go? Tonight, as soon as the moon rises. With so many soldiers about, I don't want to take the wagon and lanterns out on the road to attract their attention. The rest of the day dragged by for Truth. Finally, as soon as the moon rose, she and her uncle set out on the plow horse, with Truth seated behind him. No one challenged them along the way, so Truth did not have to pretend to cough even once. They arrived at the Buchan's house near midnight and awakened the farmer, who came out in his nightshirt. William Buchan asked, I see Truth with thee. Thee has no slave for me, friend Bardwell? Not this time. I have a message. Truth burst in. May I see Martha, please? She is in her bed. Go up to her. Thee knows the way, said friend Buchan. Sliding off the horse while the men spoke, Truth ran into the house to Martha's room. She rapped on the door and heard Martha's mumbled, Who's that? She answered Truth and hurried in. Moonlight fell on her friend's face as she sat up. Truth perched on the side of the bed, took hold of one of Martha's hands, and said, Perry Gibson brought me news today. He told me Robert is alive. Alive? Yes, answered Truth, and quickly told Martha the news. She ended by saying, We're sending a message on the railroad to find out where Robert is being held. It won't be written down on paper. All it will be is something like, Where is Robert Bardwell, a young friend from near Goldsboro, North Carolina, who was forced into the Confederate Army and captured by the Union soldiers at Gettysburg. It's to go out to friends in the North. If they find out, they'll send us a message in the same way down here to us. Oh, Truth, what if they made him go into the Union Army? He won't fight for them either, Martha.